Our gut can secrete hormones, which is really unique. And one of the first hormones that was discovered in our gut is called GLP-1. And as we age, our GLP-1 drops and our weight goes up. For some people, when they eat too much sugar, they have an increase of glucose into their system, whereas these GLP analogs slow down that glucose absorption. So it does wonders. I've seen people lose 20, 30, 40, 50, even more in terms of weight. But to me, I tell them this is just helps, but you really need to change your lifestyle.
Right. Can't
so
keep eating them.
Yeah, so you got to exercise and we got to change the way we eat. And I think a raw food diet really helps, where you chew your food thoroughly, because I've tried many different diets. I love the raw food diet. I wish just my wife love it too as much as I do, but you can't go fast. You can't just basically swallow the foods. You have to chew it. You can't chew celery fast. You have to chew it thoroughly, and we don't chew enough. And if you look at our ancestors, their jawline, they were huge because our ancestors chewed a lot.
I really appreciate you coming on, and our mutual friend Dr. Catherine Metzler has recommended that we get together for a number of years, so it's great to be here and speak with you. I'm very curious about your journey as a board-certified endocrinologist and internal medicine physician, how you got so into integrative medicine. Is there any story as to how that occurred?
I actually started my first practice in Winter Haven, Florida, coming out of University of Pittsburgh, and I happened to be the first endocrinologist in this wonderful little town called Winter Haven, Florida, more of a retirement community. And I thought it'd be cool to be the first endocrinologist in town. I mean, it's rare to be the first of anything, so I decided to join this large multi-specialty clinic. And I soon realized that this was a broken medical system, and I really like to educate my patients on how to eat and how to lose weight and how to, different theories on how to exercise. But I realized that none of this was going to get rewarded because you only have like 10 minutes per patient.
Sure.
And so you have to speak really fast. So I saw the writing on the wall way before Obamacare, and I decided to try to attend a meeting called AMMG, Age Management Medicine Group, in Las Vegas. And I was very quiet, didn't want them to know that I was an endocrinologist. So I sat in the back, and I kind of wanted to see how these closet endocrinologists were doing in anti-aging or age management. And I fell in love. I really saw the light and said, wow, this makes sense. Functional medicine, nutritional medicine, finding the root problem. And I just saw the light and I said, you know what? I'm a big fish in a small little town, and I want to basically do this type of medicine. So in 2008, I moved from Winter Haven, Florida, and I opened up practice here, not knowing anything about business.
Yeah.
And 2 days before I started, I had a friend that said, do you have a credit card machine? And I said, oh, yes, I will.
I'll get on that. That's amazing.
And we just basically, I just jumped into this practice without accepting insurance, fee for service, not going to the hospital, not accepting Medicare, and it was just basically just a lot of hope, and I just had this passion to basically just to practice this type of wellness practice. And I've been very blessed.
Yeah.
So.
Good for you.
Yeah.
If you build it, they will come. Isn't that?
Yeah, but I started at the peak of the recession, 2008.
Right. Yeah, especially in Florida, right?
Yeah, it was. I mean, there was buildings left and right that were like going,
vacant.
Exactly.
Right.
And I actually, asked my wife. I said, "Do you think I'll make it?"
Yeah.
1 week before we started, and she goes. Now she disputes on how I asked this question.
Yeah.
But anyway, she had a little doubts.
Sure. Well, that's amazing that you did that, and I think the books have really helped and educate your patients. And what endocrinology really excites a lot of people. But when we think about traditional endocrinology, it's really dealing with like pathological cancers and so forth of endocrine organs. Is that right? Whereas what you do more now is more integrative. You're looking at the whole system and how diet and exercise weave into the hormonal axis. Is that?
Well, yes. I mean, I that's part of my practice is I try to optimize their hormones. And I have this triangle health that I explain to all my patients. It's really hormone balance is one corner of this triangle of health, and then there's looking at leaky gut, intestinal hyperpermeability, and there's ways to test for it and treat it. Third is to remove toxins. There's so many environmental toxins, so to detox. And then the middle of the triangle is nutrition, which is kind of the glue that holds everything else. But I also have sleep and exercise. Exercise here, sleep here. So technically it's like a hexagon,
Yeah.
but I can never make a hexagon, so I just do a triangle.
That's awesome. And then kind of at the bottom, or kind of the last step I noticed on your website and so forth, was actual supplemental hormones and bioidentical hormone replacement. So I really commend you for looking at all the lifestyle factors first, because a lot of traditional doctors that get out of allopathic medicine jump to hormones first, and they're not really addressing the lifestyle. So you find that, you know, sleep and the diet and exercise, that plays a huge role.
Well, the top two things that in my practice, I keep it simple. Most people struggle with sleep, and they don't poop regularly. So, I mean, if you have issues with that, we'll work on that. Usually I have people come in with 100 complaints. And just before, you know, this interview, my last two patients flew in from St. Martin.
Wow.
So, I have people from, I'm been blessed. So, so anyway.
Yeah, I guess I'm intrigued by the fact that people don't poop and how that affects hormones. There's this whole enterohepatic recirculation. We can get kind of complex there. How does the gastrointestinal tract affect the hormonal regulation?
Well, I'm sure there is some mechanisms with that, but I don't think there's a lot of research in that. But I look at it that we have to get rid of toxins out of our body, and it's through our liver. And our liver converts any fat-soluble toxin, whether it's an antibiotic or whether it's a pesticide or any type of BPA or phthalates or parabens after using, you know, some personal hygiene products. Our body has to convert that into a water base, so we have to excrete it. It goes through our stool, and if you don't poop it out, it comes back in our circulation. So pooping or to have daily bowel movements is crucial.
Right.
And anyway, I have a children's book that I'm thinking about to write about the gut health, and that's going to be funny.
I love
about
it.
Poop.
Yeah.
Kids will love that.
They really will. They love to talk. I have a 4.5-year-old, and every other word is poop or fart, or it's just, she thinks it's the funniest thing ever.
Yeah.
She loves these books, by the way, which we're going to talk about here, The Amazing Heart and Awesome Brain. And we were talking offline to kind of finish up this conversation a little bit on gut health. I like how you wove in how toxins are really an important component of the endocrine system, but we talked about how you've been using the gastrointestinal type drugs, the incretin hormone mimetics, things like GLP-1 agonists and DPP-4. For our listeners that are not really so familiar with how the gastrointestinal tract affects blood sugar, because you also have written a book on diabetes, can you give us an overview of how you explain to patients how the gut kind of affects blood sugar?
Well, the gut actually is really underappreciated organ like the liver, but we are technically 1% human if we look at our DNA. We have trillions of bacteria in our gut. And if you look at their DNA, you know, a trillion versus us, you know, we're really 99% bacteria. So there's a concept called leaky gut, and leaky gut is a very simple concept. It's basically a microscopic hole in our gut wall. And the thing is that if you have a microscopic hole in your gut wall, then you're going to introduce foreign material or microorganisms like candida, yeast, or other organisms into our blood system. And the bacteria that lives in our gut, it can get affected and through our immune systems. And it's one of those systems that our body can heal if it's given the right material. So the thing is that there's a lot of different products out there, and I don't want to name any particular product name, but the thing is that there are natural ways to heal our gut, and the gut is really important. But our gut can secrete hormones, which is really unique. And one of the first hormones that was discovered in our gut is called GLP-1, and this has a phenomenal story behind it. So GLP-1 is a hormone called glucagon-like product 1, GLP-1. So anyway, it started with looking at a lizard. So there's a lizard called the Gila monster. Yeah. Have you ever heard of the Gila monster?
No, this is new to me. This is interesting.
So the Gila monster, I think, is pretty. Anything in nature is pretty. It's usually poisonous. Yeah. So this is a poisonous lizard. It's orange with a white stripe around its neck, and I think it's a really pretty lizard. It only eats 1 or 2 times a year. Wow. And scientists have been always curious why it only eats 1 or 2 times a year as a cold-blooded reptile. So they found a hormone in the spit of the lizard called GLP-1, believed to turn off the lizard's appetite. And because of that, scientists, they actually made the connection with GLP-1 that's secreted in humans. And as we age, our GLP-1 drops and our weight goes up. So GLP-1 is a hormone that our gut we can produce, but as we age, we actually make less. And we see a rise in obesity. So GLP-1 is out there. There are analogs of GLP-1. It's a natural hormone, but there's pharmaceutical companies that make these drugs. So I do use a little integrative process where I use the best of some pharmaceutical, like some blood pressure medicines that may help lower blood pressure just by trying to increase nitric oxide and magnesium and all natural things, but sometimes you have to do 2 things. So anyway, there are analogs, pharmaceutical drugs that are GLP-1 analogs that can help with weight loss, can help lower blood sugars, it can help lower glucagon levels, and in addition, for some people, when they eat too much sugar, they have an increase of glucose into their system, whereas these GLP analogs slow down that glucose absorption. So it does wonders. I've seen people lose 20, 30, 40, 50, even more in terms of weight. It's just, to me, I tell them, this is just helps, but you really need to change your lifestyle.
Right. Can't keep eating them.
Yeah, so you got to exercise, and we got to change the way we eat. And a really important issue is I tell my patients that after 40, you really need to only eat 2 meals a day. It's really breakfast and lunch. And the only theory that has worked for longevity, do you know what that is?
Calorie, CR?
Yeah, right. Calorie restriction, you got it. So, we're ingrained to eat 3 meals a day, and it's okay to have, if you're at a wedding and to enjoy it. But the thing is that in the long run, if we can really restrict our calories, especially in the evening times, we won't have a lot of these problems.
Beautifully said. I didn't know the backstory on that Gila monster with GLP-1.
But I actually met the scientist who discovered it.
That's so cool. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah. He's from the VA hospital system.
Wow.
Which is all ironic because he asked the government, the VA system, you'll get royalties, they didn't want it.
Interesting. Yeah, very, very fascinating. Dr. Lee, a lot of practitioners are kind of unaware of this gut hormonal regulation to blood sugar. And you said you've been recommending GLP-1 therapies for over 10 years. Yeah. So I definitely want to talk about calorie restriction, but you said something interesting about mixing integrative medicine is the best of Western and kind of allopathic and so forth. And you talked about natural ways to improve GLP-1. There's berberine, chewing your food, pea protein. Have you found any of these more integrative or natural approaches can help?
I think a raw food diet really helps, where you chew your food thoroughly, because I've tried many different diets. I love the raw food diet. I wish just my wife would love it too, as much as I do. But you can't go fast. You can't just basically swallow the foods. You have to chew it. You can't chew celery fast. You have to chew it thoroughly. And we don't chew enough. And if you look at our ancestors, their jawline, they were huge, because all day long they were just, gatherers and pickers, and they would just try bark and chew that and see if that was edible. So, our ancestors chewed a lot, and we don't chew as a society. It's just basically, just swallow it. So the thing is that if we chew our food much more thoroughly, and it's hard to say chew like 30 times, who's going to count that? So the thing is that if you have more raw food, real vegetables, real basically nuts, raw, organic nuts. I think that, there's so many things on the raw food diet you can eat that, you just have to thoroughly chew. The joke is by the time dinner comes around, you don't want to eat.
Yeah, because you've been chewing food all day.
Your mouth is too sore from chewing.
Yeah.
So I think naturally that increases GLP-1 hormones. I've seen people lose weight with it. I really believe you get better nutrients into the system. I don't think it has been studied raw food diet increasing GLP-1, but it just, to me, I think it does.
Right. Now, when you're talking like more of a raw vegan diet or just more vegetables, because there's that whole raw food movement where it's like soaked cashews and almonds and things are dehydrated. Can you clarify?
Yeah, there's when I say raw, it's basically grain-free, so no animal protein also. So when you're vegan, there's all these different types. Are you pescatarian? Are you basically true vegan? So the thing is that when I say raw, it's just basically there's no grains, there's no dairy, and it's just anything that basically is out there on planet Earth, you can eat.
That's growing out of the ground kind of thing. Yeah, that's really fantastic. Now, you mentioned eating breakfast, eating lunch, and skipping dinner. And what's interesting about some of the GLP-1, and we'll kind of finish up this conversation on the gut hormones, there are studies showing that breakfast eaters have higher levels of these gut hormones, GLP-1 and CCK and PYY. So that's interesting that you recommend that.
Yeah, I really believe that most of America or the developed countries that have all this chronic problems with diabetes on the rise, high blood pressure, it's basically, we have like a tsunami of other diseases like non-alcoholic liver disease or NASH, and which is also another liver disease close to cirrhosis, is because of just having too much sugar in our diet. Cancer on the rise, and heart disease and stroke is because it's our diet and lifestyle. And most people grew up eating 3 meals a day. Now some people are unfortunate, they have 1 meal a day, but they're not going to have the problems that we're going to have. I mean, they'll have other problems, but the thing is they're not going to have those chronic disease issues. And what was really interesting was, I remember this one, like NPR, I was listening to, the poorest place in India was Calcutta.
Okay.
They have now a middle class that's growing, so they have malls. So the kids that are like middle class or higher, they just go right from school and have like KFC and Pizza Hut and all that, and they have an obesity issue. And they interview these kids and they go, oh, it's so good, it tastes great. And the kids across the river who can't afford it, and they only eat 1 meal a day, if they're lucky, they're not going to have the problems that they're going to have. So it's not just only the US, but it's also in other parts of the world. And it's getting back to eating healthier. And I don't expect anyone to be perfect, but the thing is that we have choices, but the problem is there's so much television, so much commercials, so much like toys that you eat this, you go there, you get that. So, they start the brainwashing process much earlier.
Yeah, well, thankfully we have your books that really talk about eating more real food and less sugar, and we'll talk about that in a little bit, which is great for kids. But it's interesting looking at, the word that you use to describe the increased prevalence of diabetes is tsunami, and a lot of Nature Reviews, Endocrinology and Metabolism, for example, uses that word, the tsunami of diabetes in Asia and India, which is really scary. And I go to Korea periodically for Zymogen, do some speaking and stuff like that, and these folks want to take us to have like hamburgers and stuff because they think that's what we want, which is really kind of interesting. So it's like a novelty.
So you want Korean food?
I want Korean food, and they're like, no, don't you want a steak and French fries? And it was kind of challenging because the language barrier to articulate that I don't want American food when I go international. I want to enjoy the local food. But we're getting off topic now. Let's talk a little bit about you mentioned the gut microbiome, how important that is. So as an endocrinologist balancing hormones, probiotics, things like berberine, where do those come into the equation for gut health?
Well, gut health is essential. And I do some testing in my office to see if you have the microscopic hole or the leaky gut. There are a couple ways to check for it. There's something called the lactulose mannitol test. You swallow these 2 non-absorbable sugars, And if you swallow it, it goes down into your stomach, and basically you eventually poop it out. But if you have leaky gut, it gets in your blood system and you pee it out. So you collect your urine, and if you have a lot of lactose mannitol, you got leaky gut. Mm-hmm. So that's a functional test to see if you have leaky gut. There are other ways to see. There's proteins that hold your gut, like actomycin or zonulin or gluten, and if they're elevated in your blood system, then there are no other reasons why it's elevated unless you have leaky gut. Mm-hmm. So you can do a blood test or a urine test to see if you have that. Now, not everyone who comes to my office has leaky gut. I mean, I would say about 65-70% of my patients have maybe mild, moderate, severe. And sometimes just taking a good probiotic, if it's mild, because they have little, can help. If you retest, you can fix that. Sometimes I need products like that has glutamine and some licorice and maybe some berberine in there, and there's other things that can help heal your gut. We have some products that has a lot of different prebiotic, probiotic. There's also other ingredients to help your gut to heal. Mm-hmm. But glutamine is essential. It's one of those amino acids that's needed. So anyway,
that's fantastic. Now you said about 60 to 70% of your patients come in with leaky gut. Is there a common symptom profile or blood work profile that you would see?
No, I haven't. I have people who believe that they have it, and we test for it, they don't have it. So, I have some people with a lot of gas issue, and I can't really find that correlation. It's one of those things that's like, let's see what the test shows.
Yeah, test, don't guess, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Interesting. There was not that this is related, but the study came out, and I think it was 2012, showing increased levels of zonulin correlate with impaired fasting glucose, hemoglobin A1C, and triglycerides. So,
to go back on leaky gut and all these metabolic issues, it's really what we're eating. Mm-hmm. And there's so much glyphosate or Roundup that's in our environment that's causing leaky. 1 part per million of glyphosate or Roundup can cause leaky gut.
Wow.
So if you've noticed an increase in zonulin and then an increase of basically blood sugar and A1C, it's because our Mother Earth has been contaminated.
Yeah.
So it's where can you go to have there's no place on this country or in this world that we can go to that's free of pollution. Every time an airplane flies, it's sprinkling heavy metals into our organic forms.
Right.
So you could try to eat as healthy as you can. Mm. So that's why we work on removing toxins, and I can do genetic testing to see if you have a defect in terms of removing toxins out of the system. But anyway, back to the gut. Yeah. The gut is really important, and the thing is that it's a lot to do with, I think, environmental toxins. Is what's in our environment, what's in our dirt, what's in our, the foods we eat. Anyway, the thing is that there is a speaker that I'll talk to later that I think you should talk to on your next interview.
Okay.
And he will blow your audience away. I don't want to steal his thunder.
Sure. On the glyphosate issue or toxin-related issue?
Glyphosate and everything else in the gut. So.
Yeah, it's really scary. And you think about, I read some studies about rainwater in the South, like in Mississippi and Alabama, and there was really high concentrations of glyphosate. So just want to reinforce exactly what you're saying is, even if you're eating organic food and growing your own food and doing detoxes and all this, we're exposed. There's no barriers or borders around GMO crops in our own so really interesting. But let's go back a little bit. You mentioned the liver and how the microbiome is kind of underappreciated, just like the liver is a little bit. As an endocrinologist and hormone expert, what role does liver health play there, and what can we do? What do you recommend for liver health?
Well, liver health is really important. The liver is an organ that is remarkable. It does a lot of unique functions. But one important function I tell my patients is that it's like this. So imagine your liver is like this. This is a bucket, and the bottom of the bucket's a spigot. If you open up the spigot, you can drain everything out of the bucket. But if you put more than you can drain, it will overflow with free radicals, and those free radicals can damage the most precious structure in your body, and that's your DNA. It's all about keeping your DNA healthy. If your DNA gets damaged, you get premature aging, chronic disease, cancer, and death. So that's why it's so important to open up that spigot to detox and remove toxins. So the shampoos we use that has phthalates, the parabens, it's everywhere. Basically BPA that's in our bottled water. It all comes into our system. There are estrogen-like molecules. We make hormones. We have to get rid of them. I mean, we get accidental dose of glyphosate. Our body's trying to remove it. It's this antibiotic, that's been in our food and sprayed on. Our body has to convert those fat-soluble toxins into water-soluble. And if we have a defect in removing it, and the more you drink and the secondary smoke you have, it just all adds up. And you're going to have a spew of free radicals that comes out and cause damage to your DNA. So it's really key to basically open up. And there's a lot of 10-day detox programs, or there's probably 20 days detox programs, or 28 days detox program. So we use a product line that basically it's food restriction and dietary restriction, and some shakes that has all the ingredients to open up the spigot, and some pills to help buffer you. And we get some great results with it. And we use different companies for it.
Sure. And you also do IV therapies as well.
Yeah, we do tons of IV therapy, intravenous nutrition to help. We give glutathione, which a lot of people need to open up the liver. Even though it's short acting, I think it's one of the best things our body needs.
Yeah, I've noticed a lot of mental clarity associated with glutathione pushes and drips and so forth. So very, very interesting there. Now, I just have to ask Dr. Lee about adrenal fatigue. I think this is one of these big kind of bucket terms that we hear about. And as an endocrinologist, what are your thoughts on adrenal fatigue? Does it exist, or is it a hypothalamic manifestation? Talk about kind of...
Sure.
Yeah.
So I'm board certified in endocrinology, and also I do age management. I've taken extra classes in age management. There's no specific board that's recognized by the American Board of Internal Medicine. But anyway, the thing is that I believe in adrenal fatigue because I also experienced adrenal fatigue in 2008 when I started my practice. So you could do a salivary test to see where your cortisols are, and optimally your cortisol should be the highest in the morning and lowest in the evening. When I evaluated my cortisol levels, I was almost flatline. I had the stress of starting a practice, the peak of the recession, and am I going to survive? Am I going to make it? So I couldn't even, I was a triathlete. I used to love to train. I was very disciplined, and I was so exhausted I could not even jog. I was that mentally and physically tired. Without cortisol, do you know that in 12 hours, if you have zero cortisols, in 12 hours you're dead?
I do not know that.
Because cortisol is needed to basically vasoconstrict. So you basically, if you have zero cortisol, your blood pressure is going to drop and you're dead. So there's a condition called Addison's. That condition exists. President Kennedy had apparently Addison's from the war. Basically got TB, but they didn't want to announce that he had TB. But anyway, it affected his adrenals. Tuberculosis loves to go to the adrenals. So he had to be on steroids. So you would see on TV, they wouldn't really know how to treat Addison's well that time, but sometimes it's really swollen, sometimes not. And it's really because if you take too much steroids, you can swell a lot. So the thing is that Addison's one condition, and then where you make zero cortisol, and then the other condition is called Cushing's, where you make too much cortisol, and that's an endocrine disorder there. Adrenal fatigue is like diabetes, early diabetes. Pre-diabetes, it's also like mild underactive thyroid or mild overactive thyroid, and 10 years ago it really didn't exist.
Yeah.
And you can see the evolution, the guidelines. The thyroid test 30 years ago, TSH over 10, it was kind of normal. And now you can see that, things are changing. So medicine evolves, but currently in 2016 and going to 2017, I've read the papers, it does not exist. Because they're not thinking wellness. But eventually they're going to realize this condition does exist. Because just because the Endocrine Society says it does not exist, it does exist. And the thing is that it's just that I think that more and more papers are going to be written, and there's going to be the younger generation that will be a little more open-minded and will say, hey, it does exist. So sometimes maybe the public will basically, convert the doctors and say, hey, it does exist. So medicine's funny. Like, there was this thing called H. pylori, and the connection there and a gastric ulcer. They were saying a bacteria, a stomach ulcer, that doesn't exist.
No way. Yeah.
Yeah, and then there's a bacteria in cancer, like HPV and cervical cancer. Like so. The thing is, it may sound strange, but the thing is that if you look at the evidence with an open mind and connect the dots, you'll see that it does exist.
So there is a
just because it's not billable does not mean that condition does not exist. That's why I'm fee for service, because if you try to live in conventional medicine and try to go with the codes how the insurance company does, it's nothing going to be. You can't bill for adrenal fatigue.
Right. Yeah, and as a practitioner, your toolbox is very limited if you practice via traditional medicine,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly.
Yeah, and you don't get reimbursed for lifestyle-based medicine, which is how you're helping people restore their health.
And if you can help them sleep better, that is like a huge thing, because I believe that just overall, we're just Americans, just overworked, so much stress. We're not like a country that takes 3 months off and vacation. It's not socialized. So the thing is that we're just a country that's going to burn out.
Yeah, and one of the deleterious effects that chronic stress has on the body is issues with the thyroid, and so I know that's a huge issue for a lot of women. Again, does it kind of come back to all the lifestyle factors, diet, exercise, sleep, or is there something specific or unique that you found with hypothyroidism that you want to dive into?
I could speak an hour on thyroid.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
So just kind of, thyroid is interesting because it's a subject that a lot of people have. I just got interviewed for the Hashimoto Summit there, talking about the thyroid there. So, just some tidbits is that you can reverse thyroid antibodies. I'm still stuck with a couple, but there's some new protocols I'm trying. I want to see those results before I mention it, but I'm kind of excited to try some different things to reverse Hashimoto's or autoimmune thyroid condition. And I really believe if you fix the gut, you can also reverse the antibodies, because 70% of our immune system, almost 70% of our immune system lies in our gut. That's called the Peyer's patch. And if you have a leaky gut, that basically stimulates the Peyer's patch and throws things off where it can attack your own body. So you have all these $10,000 or expensive medications that's out there, these biologics. They're targeting small little things, but it's like, my wife was watching that, and there was this 60-minute show that about Alzheimer's in Colombia, where like 1 out of 2 in the family will have early Alzheimer's.
It was on last night, right?
Yes.
Yeah, we were watching that. Okay.
And there's a new drug.
Right.
It was like $30 million, and it's helping this little country place in Colombia. But the thing is that when the funding runs out, how are they going to afford this drug?
Right.
I mean,
incredible.
it's like you stop it, does the plaque just grow and all that? So the thing is that they have the genetic defect. You can have the bad gene, but if you have that lifestyle where you can't detox, and if you have too much stress, and things will basically fall apart. So back on the thyroid is a very important organ, and I look at reverse T3 and free T3. And anyway, the thing is that I have a lot of people that are cold, tired, and fat, even though they have a normal TSH. But if you look at the reverse T3, which is an inactive thyroid hormone, it's way too high, and their active hormone, free T3, is very low. So a lot of people, you don't have to have all three. It could be cold, tired, and fat. And what I do is try to balance it and lower the reverse T3 and increase the free T3. And that can help in terms of better metabolism. And they feel warmer. And in addition, they have better energy.
Yeah. And getting rid of that reverse T3 or normalizing, making more free T3 available, is that more through, you mentioned like restoring the gut and gut immune tolerance, enhancing that, or is that more stress reduction based lifestyle therapy? Or
It's more the liver.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, because your T4 gets converted through the liver to either free T3 or reverse T3. And a lot of people, their liver is just going the path of least resistance. So if you optimize the liver, it actually goes more into free T3.
Interesting. I know selenium's involved in that conversion with that deadenase enzyme. Do you like?
Yeah, 200 micrograms of selenium a day helps.
Yeah. That's fantastic. Interesting that you mentioned that 60 Minutes. I was watching that with my mom actually last night. They didn't mention epigenetics. So it was like, if you have this gene,
that gene is very rare. It's in a unique family. It's kind of a unique disease. Whether it applies to people with the ApoE4 gene, that's more prevalent. They're taking a small piece of the pie of Alzheimer's, and if they can really reduce it, I think that's amazing. But the thing is, I think there's a bigger picture to it, and it's really lifestyle, environmental toxins. It's about getting your hormones balanced, and you have a bad gene, but can you do other things to help? So I think there's a lot of things that has to be looked at.
Yeah,
because they have DNA damage, and if you damage your DNA, boom, things happen.
Yeah, and one of the factors that you talk about in your books is how damaging blood sugar is for the brain. And that's, I think, an underappreciated component of cognitive health. People think, it's important to do novelty things, have community and meaning and purpose in life, but the role that blood sugar dysregulation has on reducing cognitive abilities.
Well, I actually believe it's the food industry because of sugar. It's subsidized, so I call sugar the devil. And then followed with insulin. And if high insulin level, I kind of explain in one of my books here that insulin is like broken glass, and it will go down your blood vessel, will open up your blood vessel, and you're going to have inflammation, like cholesterol will come in there, and your immune system goes in there, will make a big party and basically cause that inflammation, and a cascade of events will happen. So the thing is that if it's okay to have sugar, but if you have too much, you're going to have consequences. So, and it's really the insulin levels. So I check fasting insulin levels. And if you really want to reduce Alzheimer's, you want to reduce heart disease, want to reduce cancer, you got to lower your insulin levels. That is really key. And I try to get my insulin levels under 5 or less. I think that's the key. And I see some even young adults insulin levels of 15, 18, 20, 22, and they can't lose weight. And I tell them, you will never lose weight if you have an insulin level this high. Insulin will promote that sugar, basically cause that adipocytes, so the fat cells, to grow. Your liver is going to basically get filled with sugar and fat, and then it's going to get a fatty liver, and then it progresses, and it will eventually go into a condition called NASH. And then NASH, you can lead to cirrhosis. And one of the leading causes of cirrhosis or liver failure is because of too much sugar, and it starts at our youth. That's why I've written kids' books. It takes me forever to write, but I'm glad your daughter, you read that, and which is her favorite book?
The Amazing Heart. And what's really interesting about this, I want to finish up that conversation on insulin, but just to take a little sidestep, my brother-in-law is an interventional cardiologist, so I brought this to him and got his approval. He was fired up. He ordered some for his kids as well. So yeah, you do a really good job with the books. And I was going to talk about the books later, but we can do it now, obviously. As a parent, sometimes you get bored of reading these other children's books that really have no meaning or purpose. They're just someone's creative idea because they're not educational. But I think these books are as important for the parents as they are for the kids, because it's a constant reminder of, oh yeah, sugar is bad for the brain, bad for the heart, and head trauma, and eating vegetables. So you do a wonderful job here. The illustrations are really good. Yeah, you have all the chambers of the heart and the major vessels, and you do an awesome job. So I want to commend you for that, and thank you.
Thanks.
The education is really key. Let's finish up a little bit on the insulin within the blood vessels. So if I heard you correctly, it's almost like leaky gut in the sense that the blood vessels become leaky via insulin, and that allows inflammatory mediators and things to come in, and then narrowing and so forth?
Well, you have plaque production. So the thing is, yes, in a way it's like leaky gut. You have a microscopic hole, and so time you have a hole in the body is not good. So the thing is that our body can heal it, but sometimes you just insult your body so much that you start the process of disease. And the number one disease is heart disease. So it really stems from our diet. Yes, genetic, there's some roles in some gene, early heart disease and all that, but majority is basically our lifestyle.
Sure.
And it starts at our youth. And the thing is that if you have too much soda, too much sugar in your diet, too much ice cream, cakes, pies, and not enough vegetables, what's going to happen is there's a condition called acanthus nigricans. And you can see it. I mean, I've seen kids on elevators, and you look at the back of their neck, and they have that thickening brown, looks like dirt on the back. They're going to have their first heart attack by the time they're 30. Before 40, is because it's just this is a disease, not just only just diabetes, but heart disease and everything else is happening. It's a marker of inflammation, and also cancer arises there too. So, it's not a good sign. And no kid at age 10 to 12 should have acanthus nigricans. I remember we were in San Francisco in an elevator and saw the dad overweight, and the two kids come by with a tub of ice cream and popcorn, and my kids were on the back of the elevator, and they come and they turn around, and it's like you could see the acanthus nigricans, and I was just shaking my head. It's like, this is not healthy for them. They can change, they can reverse.
Right.
And it's all about parents, because kids can't really buy things.
Yeah.
So it's, if you want your children to be healthier, I think it's the greatest gift.
Absolutely.
It's really about education.
Yeah, and
what better gift do you want to give to your kid is
gift of health. Yeah, is
health
really
and
key. Education. Right, absolutely. And I think they're interwoven together, because imbalanced blood sugar I've seen in a lot of kids. The inability to focus it creates, and running around and so forth. So back to are those also skin tags? I know people are from the acanthosis nigricans.
Skin tags is actually a totally different disorder, but
Okay.
the thing is that it's kind of it looks like dirt that you can't rub off. So it's also found underneath the arm pits, but you're not going to look at people's armpits unless they show it to you, or you're the healthcare provider. You want to look at it, but usually if the hair is short, you can kind of see it there.
Kind of see it.
So.
And did your kids notice that too, or did you have a conversation with them afterwards? Just curious.
Oh, my kids, they
get it?
They know some fancy medical words, but I don't think I gave the lesson about acanthus nigricans.
Yeah.
They usually ask my wife if they have Mittelschmerz.
That is so funny. Too funny. Let's finish up a little bit on calorie restriction, something you mentioned earlier, and then we've talked now about the deleterious effects of insulin that it has on the body. And one of the benefits of calorie restriction that I've understood is lower insulin, lower glucose.
Exactly.
And so we know that it has a big role there, and it also slows down the aging process. So what you found in your practice is eating breakfast and kind of like a late lunch, and then skipping dinner and fasting 16 hours or so?
Yeah, modify a fast. Start with 1 day a week. After 5 or 6 o'clock, just shut it down. Yeah. If you normally eat at 6, then just pick 1 day a week. And if you're starving, have chicken broth or a vegetable broth if you're a vegetarian, and it's amazing. Don't get the low salt one, because that doesn't work. Or a handful of raw nuts if you're really starving. But I really think that if you go through 30 minutes and if you're busy, you're going to go through that hunger phase, and it's just willpower too. Yeah. So if a commitment, start with 1 day a week, and if you do 2 days in a row, hopefully by the third day you're going to be hungry and you'll have a larger breakfast. The only way to break the system is you have to sacrifice a little, because in theory you know what to do, but in reality you're going to wake up not hungry. And most of my patients, they want to lose 20, 30, 40 pounds. I ask them, what did you eat for dinner last night? Oh, I ate way too late, Dr. Lee. Why do you ask that question? And it's usually a huge meal. And then they go to bed and they can't sleep well, and they just have a cup of coffee in the morning, and it's a vicious cycle, goes back and forth. So the thing is that to break the cycle, you gotta skip your evening meal, and you gotta suffer a little to gain a lot, and it's not that bad. I mean, the thing is that if we can teach our youth, hey, look, it's okay after 40. You really don't need 3 meals a day.
Mm-hmm.
If you're at a wedding or at a party, or if, go ahead, enjoy that night,
Yeah.
but have some flexibility too.
Mm-hmm. I really like how you give that advice about breaking the cycle, because that's a common question that I get. I do some online weight loss coaching, and people always say, I'm not hungry for breakfast, what do I do? And it's like that same thing is skip dinner once in a while and you'll be hungry. Maybe not the first day, but like you said,
Yes.
over time.
What I tell my patients is, if, let's say, you start dreaming about breakfast,
Mm-hmm.
then you've achieved that goal.
Yeah.
And you wake up and you want to eat, that is a great thing. And it may take 2 or 3 dinners you skip in a row to get that phase. But if you want to change your life, lower insulin resistance, lower the risk of heart disease, stroke, and cancer, you can do something and have more energy and live longer.
Right.
You got to restrict our calories a little.
Yeah, and do you recommend exercise in the morning as another strategy to kind of increase hunger for breakfast?
Yeah, I'm actually, not many people can do it, but for the longest time I would always run in the morning without eating anything, so I'd be fine. But not many people can do that, so if, you just have to, your body has to train for that. So I start with, let's do some small steps, and whenever you can exercise, that also helps,
Yeah, awesome. Well, we have 3 final questions that we ask every guest on the show, but I first want to finish up, Dr. Lee, about the book. So we have Your Amazing Heart and Your Awesome Brain. As I mentioned, I have both of these. Thanks for sending them, by the way. Let's talk about what's next.
So actually, let me kind of give you a little spiel about Your Amazing Heart. So I have a team of writers. I have Jim Huth, who actually is, helped participate, and he's kind of my editor, and I have we all help with ideas. And Brian, he's actually an amazing artist, and he worked on Avatar movie sets.
Oh, wow.
So he's also does videography, and so the thing is, I've never written a kid's book, so I really didn't know how to proceed with it, but I really wanted to kind of teach at a younger level, and that was the key, how to have a healthy heart, and to let them understand that heart disease or a heart attack is the #1 killer, and you can prevent it. And like your brother-in-law, who's a cardiologist, interventional cardiologist, loves it. I have other, doctors who love this. It's just that I just don't know how to market this book anyway. But the thing is, there are 3 secrets, and the kids can read it, and it's really, I think a clever way in terms of say, hey, if you just keep 3 little points, if you do 3, you're going to do well. And then, so it took me about 125 versions to get to basically to this final book here. I have an ebook version on Apple iTunes, so it's all animated.
Cool.
So
awesome.
Not many people know about that,
Yeah.
but there's, it's interactive, you push, there's music, there's sounds, there's some cool things in there. I started with that first, and then and then I realized a lot of my friends don't have their iPad working, they don't want to upgrade their system.
They forgot their password to get
Exactly.
in it.
They don't have an iTunes account and blah, blah, blah. So I actually came out with the paper book after the iBook, the iBook version. And then the second book is Your Awesome Brain. And this is the first kids book that talk about the dangers of playing football, the traumatic brain injury.
Yeah.
It came out before Will Smith's movie.
Right. Good for you.
And anyway, our brain could be, there's a condition called neuroplasticity. So as we age, we can get smarter, and we can actually perform better. And we only use a small percentage of our brain. And I really believe that kids have to dream, and they have to basically never stop learning. That's the key. And somehow it's like some kids after high school, that's it.
Right.
I don't want to read anymore. And there's so much to learn. So that's the thing.
Yeah.
And I think that's an important part. But it shows about what a stroke is, and a lot of parents look at it, they go, I didn't know that's a stroke. So it's not only for the parents, kids, it's also for parents. So it opens the discussion on the family table, like maybe we should change our diet or clean it up a little. So I have a third kids book that I finished writing the first draft, but knowing my experience of like 120 rewrites and about 115 rewrites, it's a long way to go, but
Yeah.
I think I got the formula down. But anyway, it's
for
about
you.
the liver.
About the liver, awesome.
Yeah, the working title is Your Incredible Liver, but I have a small little fans that like this book. They're like 8-year-old to 10-year-old girls, and they're just like, hurry up.
You come out with it already, huh?
Yeah, so it takes me more than a year to write these books.
They're really detailed, really clever, and then the illustrations are awesome. Yeah, like I said, I mean, the kids like it because, you know, my daughter, she points, but I like it too because it's actually like pertinent and relevant. Right. Unlike the other, there's like Knuffle Bunny and some of these other books where there's not really any purpose or meaning there. So I commend you for that. So we'll have the links below this video and also on the show notes page if folks want to learn more about these books. And they're available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble, anywhere books are.
No. I don't have an agent. So
Okay.
if there's anyone out there that's a literary agent for children's book, please contact me.
Right.
I don't know how to contact any of you guys. Everyone's busy, but the thing is, it's available on Amazon. But your Amazing Heart actually is also on Apple iTunes. That's the only iBook that I have that's interactive. I didn't go to an interactive book on this one because anyway, it's time consuming and in addition, it's there's also you got to look at the cost of making it too.
Yeah. And then it's less screen time. I really like reading to my daughter at night before she goes to bed with a physical book.
Sure.
So I commend you for taking the time. Yeah, these are really well done. So as a busy physician, you have 2 children, you're married, busy practice. We want to know your morning routine. What does the first couple hours of your day look like?
Well, we have a dog now, so it's all upside down. So his name is Sparky. He's a Maltese Shih Tzu. So the whole life goes around him. It used to be that I used to get up early in the morning and just really, I don't look at the phone. I think to be productive in life, you got to have your time only. You got to have basically uninterrupted time that you can have time to think. Yeah. So I'd like to go to bed early. I like to wake up early. And whether I get on my spin bike and spin at home or go to the pool and swim with the master swim team or go to the gym and just do some weights. But I have to kind of walk the dog at 7:30. So everything has to be done before 7:30. Yeah. So, and then because this dog has to go out, so and walk the dog. Although my kids promised I'll walk the dog.
Yeah.
That hasn't
didn't happen. Yeah.
And then I have breakfast and I try to have basically, not all the time, but sometimes I have salads in the morning time. Someone asked me what I ate for breakfast. I said, you'll never eat this ever, because it was leftover from my wife who made a Korean dish. I had cucumbers with, that was sauteed, it was soaked in vinegar and strips of jellyfish.
Wow.
It's really delicious.
Sounds yummy.
I love it.
Traditional Korean breakfast, yeah.
My one son loves to have a Korean breakfast with rice and soup and vegetables, and my other son wants the American breakfast of cereal, and which I pick my battles.
Yeah, right.
So anyway, no one's perfect. So.
It's tough, yeah, with the kids, right? Their taste, it will probably change over time too. That's really interesting. So basically, your creative moments you find are best in the morning, and then you do some exercise as well. That's part of it.
I like to exercise in the morning because that's the best time I can get around. And then it's just like I start work, and fortunately I'm close by, so I don't have to be stuck in much traffic. But and then in the afternoon, I usually have to take the kids one place or another. Yeah. And then I coach soccer.
Cool.
So I've never played soccer, but I've coached for 10 years.
Yeah.
So right now it's indoor soccer, futsal. So Wednesday night is the practice, and Friday night's the games.
There you go.
And then one son's very active in golf, so I usually have to caddy on Saturday or Sunday for his golf tournaments. The other one's into soccer, so
yeah. So a lot of moving around, a lot of walking. Yes. It sounds like. Are you still training for Ironmans and triathlons, or?
I wish, but no.
Yeah, not enough time, eh?
Not enough time for that, but I have some goals I like to do. So, but anyway, there's some challenges I like to do. So, one challenge is, if I have a little more structure and time, and I can get to the pool more often. I eventually like to swim across Tampa Bay, which is about, it's a 5K swim, open water swim.
Wow.
So I'm a really good swimmer, so
that's doable.
So it's doable.
Yeah,
I just have to put the time for it.
Right, yeah, that's a lot. Yeah, swimming is tough. I did bike racing, so I'm strong on the bike, but swimming, I never did Ironmans or triathlons for that.
That's fine. You don't have to do it.
For that reason. But speaking of swimming, if you were stranded on a desert island, Dr. Lee, vitamin D and omega-3 are covered. What's one herb nutrient or whole food that you would bring and that you would recommend clients bring as well?
Well, on the island, can you eat?
You can eat food, but just basically your favorite supplement.
They have a lot of like orange trees and
fish. They have a lot of stuff, but it's just one thing that you could bring. What would it be?
Well, there's that's always the question. What you would do, but I think that vitamin C is essential. You can never get enough vitamin C. I think that's really essential. You're saying one thing, so
it's tough.
I'm giving one. So.
Yeah, vitamin. Do you use ascorbic acid, or I know there's ester salt derivatives of vitamin C. What's your favorite?
I like the one from Linus Pauling, the vitamin C there, but it's anyway. It's there's if you can get a natural vitamin C, that's even better, I think.
Right, from food.
So, yeah.
Okay, you're in an elevator with maybe Prime Minister of a foreign country, President of the United States. What sort of health or lifestyle tip would you want to share with them in that elevator ride?
Depends what condition they have.
Yeah.
So if they're overweight, I get this question all the time. How can I lose weight when they're holding a bottle of beer?
Right.
Like, you gotta drink less.
Yeah.
But I think for most people, they're overworked, they're tired and fatigued. If there's, hey, I'm tired, fatigued, I would say, you know what? Try to get 30 minutes extra sleep. Make that a focus. Turn off the phone, get ready. If you go to bed at midnight, try to go to bed at 11:30. That extra 30 minutes, in 1 week you'll be exponentially better.
Yeah, really good tip. Dr. Lee, I appreciate you coming on the show.
Oh, thank you very much.
If folks want to check out more information about your practice, your books, I know you have a couple of different websites. Where can they learn more about you?
Yeah, it's very simple. There's a website, you can just Google Dr. Edwin Lee, E-D-W-I-N, Lee, L-E-E, and you'll find my website there. And for my books, they're all on Amazon, so just type in my name, Dr. Edwin Lee, you'll see my books there.
Sure. Okay.
So I have 2 kids' books, and then I did rewrite this one, my first book, called Feel Good, Look Younger. And this is the book that basically talks about wellness, and I talk about detoxification, and it's really written for my patients on what leaky gut is and the importance of all the different hormones and how conventional endocrine thinks and how age management thinks. And I show them the data on both.
Cool.
Are hormones bad or hormones safe? I kind of go through all that data there.
Awesome.
And then the other book that took me forever to write, which should be really 3 books in one, is called Your Best Investment. And this book basically talks about the danger of too much sugar or high insulin levels. And there's 2 different type of nutritionists that helped me write this book, and they give a 30-day plan in terms of, what to eat. So one's kind of for the working mom that has, short amount of time, and another one's from California that's very creative. Yeah. And if you want to try different things, they're both great.
That's awesome.
So, yeah.
I didn't realize that. So we'll have links to all these books, folks, in the show notes page and below here on the YouTube description. So I really, again, appreciate you coming on the show, commend you for all the great work that you're doing, taking the time to really write these books and spread the word. So Thanks. Keep up the great work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
My pleasure.